A quick check-in here, guys. If you're just joining, I got my buddy Larry Hagner, host of the Good Dad Project, author of The Dad's Edge, and we're about to give you 15 minutes of the goods from a guy who's interviewed 70 people over the last year and a half, Larry?
Over the past, just over a year. And dude, it's been, again, if you would have asked me a year ago if we would have interviewed professional UFC fighters, Navy SEALs, Joe DeSena, Jack Canfield, I'm still in awe by that. I'm like, no, that didn't happen. There's no way. But yet, but I mean, here's the thing. It's a true testament to no matter what level you're playing at in life, whether you're a celebrity, a SEAL, a pro fighter, an author, or just an average dude like us. I mean, guys want to talk about this. Well, they want to talk about fatherhood. They want to know what it means to be a husband, to be a dad, to be a man. So it's so important to us. And man, it's been every single week I've gotten to learn something new from one of our guests, and it's just been a phenomenal journey.
That's so cool. I love your show, man. It's really great. And that's how we got connected, right? It was via the podcast.
Yeah.
Cool. And here we are. We're about to hang with some of our friends and some new friends, people that we don't know. I want to take a quick minute and welcome. I see some names here. I can't get through them all, but I see Ricky, Mark, Eric, Dave, Chris, John, Dennis. Hey, thanks for joining. So cool. We're going to kick this thing off here in just a second. We want to be respectful of your time, and Larry's got some great content to share with you. If you feel at all like I do, I'm excited to not only hear what Larry has to say, and I've listened to a ton of his shows, and it may be that I will hear something I've heard before, but I believe this is conditioning. I believe that I need to hear things repeatedly over and over, like training my muscles. I got to train my mindset to be in the game as a great dad. So if you're just joining us, I got Larry Hagner with me. That's the good looking guy that's not talking. And Larry is the host of the Good Dad Project podcast. And if you're not subscribing to this, you have to do this right away so that on your way to work, on your way home, that you have an opportunity to brush up on your dad skills and learn some new stuff and be reminded of the things that are important. Larry also wrote an amazing book called The Dad's Edge, which is doing phenomenally well. And I will tell you that one of the things I love most about Larry is who he is as an individual, his character, how genuine he is, and how much he cares. I love following Larry, your posts on Facebook and seeing your family as it grows. You have a team that you're recruiting over there, that you're building. So I'm going to hand it off to you because I want to get right to the good stuff. But I'd love for you to share for people who may not know you or know your story and why you are doing this, why your heart has led you to a place where you've interviewed 70 amazing guys about their journey through fatherhood. Give us a few seconds on you, your history, how you got to this place, and then let's jump into the 5 ideas that we're going to share today. And I'll just hand the mic off to you, buddy.
Yeah, man. So I appreciate it. And by the way, it's an honor doing a webinar with you. And guys, for those of you who are listening, who are part of Dad's Edge, sound off in the chat box if you want to as well. Let us know you're from Dad's Edge. But guys, man, I'll just start by saying this. I'm just a humble dude that is literally learning this thing every single day. And I'm trying to sharpen my skills every single day. And I have to remind myself to do the right thing every day, several times a day. My story really goes like this. I grew up in pretty much a fatherless environment for about half my childhood. And then the other half, I was usually raised by a man that my mom was either dating or married to who had some level of toxicity that was involved, like alcohol, drugs, or verbal, mental, physical abuse. I mean, you name it. I went through it. So when it came time for me to be, and I don't share this out of pity at all. I mean, I'm thankful for that. I mean, Tony Robbins says, if you're going to blame for the whole thing, blame for the good stuff, blame for the bad stuff, which I wholeheartedly believe that, because I would not have the drive and I wouldn't have the empathy today if it was not for that upbringing, because it really shaped me into the person I was. And it was twofold. It's shaped me into a person that has so much drive to learn and not repeat the same patterns and behavior that I grew up with. But it's also made me very empathetic to the man. Most of us dads, to some degree, we struggle. And I've been a dad for 10 years. And I can tell you by far, I'm learning this thing every single day still. I make mistakes every day, sometimes every minute of the day, but I lived for 5 of those years, so half my time, in the shoes of a struggling man. I had zero patience, zero work-life balance. I wasn't engaged. I was literally like my own worst enemy. Unfortunately, what was happening is my kids paid that price. My wife paid that price. Selfishly, I paid that price, because when you're living that life of fear and zero confidence and you're struggling, your life sucks too. So not only the people around you, but yours does too. And I just got tired of it. I just got really, really tired of it. And I finally said, that's it. I'm done living this way. I'm going to humble myself to just be a student of this. So basically, like, just surrendering like the whole ego thing, like the whole thing of like, I'm a dad, I've got it figured out, I'm good, no problem. When inside I was just quietly struggling with it. So I just decided at that point in time to start the Good Dad Project Facebook page, which I don't know how many people know this, but I was actually the project. I was the Good Dad Project. The project was me. I was like, I just need to figure this out, just like anything else. Just as we sharpen our skills in our professional lives, we're constantly learning, even all through school. I decided, like, look, I'm just going to learn something new every single day about what it means to be a good man, a good father, a good husband. I'm going to implement those strategies and share them along the way. Had no desire, no intent whatsoever to become an online presence, a podcast. That was like the furthest thing. And even the book, I mean, I still kind of like, the book's been out there for almost a year, but even when someone told me, one of my mentors early on, you should write a book, I laughed. I was like, that's hilarious. I'm not a writer. Like, I can't write a book. But lo and behold, here we are. But it's literally the GDP, and what I'm doing is it's from one man to another. It's from one dad to another. It's from one dad to another who gets his hands dirty, who makes mistakes, who's humble, and is just trying to learn. And as I've learned every single week with this podcast, the podcast has just pretty much been a public platform of me learning.
Yeah.
So that's really what it is. So that's my background.
That's awesome, man. So, dude, 70 interviews. We got to the summary piece, and I just love this. Yeah. I know it's impossible to think about what are 5 of the best takeaways. So I know you're going to give us what you feel are the best. I mean, nothing takes the place in going and listening to all 70, but for the busy dad out there today, as an introduction, give us 5, man, things that we can work on right away.
Yeah, man, it's like overdosing on Netflix or something. Like, go to
listening.
Right. No, I would say any episode that has to do with our inner game as fathers, and any episode that has a story, like a story, some of these stories, I mean, that's what you really relate to. I mean, we could always name, a podcast, the 5 ways to have an unbeatable mind, but it's really the story and it's the guest. So let me start with one. I'm an uber fan of this guy. If you follow me on the Dad's Edge, I'm a huge fan of this guy, and that's Commander Navy SEAL Commander Mark Devine, also a New York Times bestseller, wrote Unbeatable Mind, The Way of the SEAL, and 8 Weeks to SEAL Fit. He came on our podcast, episode 28, quite some time ago, and talked to us about how to create an unbeatable mind. And he's going to be on our podcast this coming week to talk about SEAL Fit. But really what I learned from Mark is this, and it sounds, when I first heard it, it sounded kind of hokey, but man, it made so much sense. And there's a parable of the courage wolf and the fear wolf. And the parable goes like this. There are 2 wolves. There are 2 wolves that literally reside in our minds, our hearts, our spirit. And these 2 wolves, one is the fear wolf and one is the courage wolf. And those 2 wolves are literally lurking inside of us at all times, just fighting for our attention. I never really thought of it like that. So what's most important is, and how to create an unbeatable mind, is to starve that wolf of fear and to feed that wolf of courage. But the question is like, okay, I kind of get that, but how do we do that? We do that all day long. We have these thought patterns of fear. For instance, like the fear wolf is really our fear. It's our ego. It's our insecurity. It's our lack of confidence. It's our scarcity mindset, right? A lot of the questions that we ask ourselves every single day is fear-based. And that's our default. That's not our fault. That's our default. Okay. What I mean by that is, going back to like prehistoric days, our minds are wired to keep us from danger. You know, they're wired to keep us from like that animal that wants to eat us around the corner. So your mind is always like, well, this could happen. Hey, watch out for this. Well, what if you don't have enough of this? So it's constantly getting you to ask yourself questions that are weak-minded. Well, what happens when we do that, this is straight from Mark Divine, is when we ask ourselves weak-minded questions, we have a mentality of defeat and we have a mentality of weakness. So if we ask ourselves questions like, why can't I do this? Whatever this is, your mind will tell you exactly why you can't do this. But if you ask yourself a question that's more strength-based and empowering-based, like, how can I do this better? Your mind starts to search for those solutions of, well, how can I make this better? So your mind doesn't care if you're asking yourself a good question or a bad question, and that's where the fear wolf is and the courage wolf. So if you're asking yourself empowering questions, the quality of our life depends on the quality of our questions. So if you're asking yourself the right questions, guess what? You'll get the right solutions. So to create an unbeatable mind is really understanding how to feed that courage wolf. And that courage wolf feeds off of asking yourself empowering based questions. So really quick, just to summarize, any question that starts with, why can't I? Man, scratch it. Like, don't even move on. Don't even finish the question. The question really is, how can I? What can I do? What is the one thing that I need to do right now that's going to lead me to victory? Guys, this works in our work life. This works in our marriage. This works when we raise our kids. This works. Now, here's the one thing, though. I've heard this, like John talks about, tons of times. I still have to remind myself to ask these questions several times a day because my default wants me to go to that weak-minded area of my brain. So,
Larry, could somebody
yeah.
write as an action? Would you agree? I'm going to say to everybody listening right now, grab a piece of paper right now as Larry's talking, write with a big marker a question, an empowering how can I question, and hang it up somewhere where you can see it today. So even if it's for the next 24 hours, write a question down, hang it up.
That actually leads me to the second point, which is you have to be prepared. Exactly that. Think of a question that will lead you to an empowering based solution. The other thing is before you even ask yourself a question, this is the second tip, is you have to interrupt that negative thought process with an affirmation or an AKA power statement. Now, I know full well some of the reputations that affirmations have. Like when I think of reputations, I think of Stuart Smalley from Saturday Night Live, sitting in front of that mirror with a cardigan. Yeah, with a cardigan sweater, saying "I'm special." You know, I'm brilliant, and gosh darn it, people just love me. Let me tell you right now, that is an affirmation. That is a power statement. But man, that is the wrong time to use that because it's ineffective and it's corny and it's cheesy. The right time to use a power statement, if you think about this, this is something that Mark Divine taught as well, is the SEALs do this all the time. Like, for instance, to get through their 50-hour hell week of training, they have to have a power statement that snaps their mentality, that snaps their physical being, their spiritual being, their emotional being back into action. Otherwise, they fail. So, for instance, you'll hear again on this episode coming up this week with Mark Divine, is he uses the affirmation, aka power statement, looking good, feeling good, I ought to be in Hollywood. And he says, I mean, the guy's 53 years old. He's a commander in the Navy SEALs. This guy is like one of the baddest dudes on the planet. And on this podcast that I'm launching next week, he even says, I still have to use that like 20 times a day. Like, no kidding around. Like, he's one of the baddest dudes in the world. And he's like, I still have to use it all the time because the fear wolf wants to creep in. And that's how I stop him. Looking good, feeling good, I ought to be in Hollywood. What's the empowering question I need to ask now? So that's literally the step. Putting in your affirmation. Like for me, my affirmation is, I got this, or easy day, or if you're a spiritual person, I am a spiritual person. Through God, I have unlimited strength. So when I'm faced with an obstacle, instead of asking, oh, crap, why me? I interdict that thought process with the power statement like, through God, I have unlimited strength. What do I need to do to achieve victory in this situation right now? And boom, that is creating an unbeatable mind. The empowering question that leads you to an empowering solution.
That's awesome. Larry, can I ask anybody that's with us right now, if you have an empowering question, an affirmation, or something that you use right now,
Post
throw
it.
it in the chat box. Yeah, it'd be cool to see.
Yeah, Mark C. He loves the parable of the two wolves, man. Thanks for chiming in. Yeah, if you guys are in, man, chime in on the chat. We love to hear your feedback. All right, so I'm gonna talk about another point here, which if you're a UFC fighter or a UFC fighter, if you're a UFC fan,
They
put
might
that.
be a UFC fighter.
Yeah, you never know. If you're a UFC fan, man, put that in the chat box that you love the UFC. One of the best episodes, and it still ranks number 2 in our most downloaded episode to date, and that is our episode with Carlos Condit. Which, if you don't know who Carlos Condit is, you're probably one of the 5 people in the world who don't. But he is one of the best welterweight UFC fighters in the world, and literally has one of the best records in the UFC. Now we're about ready to go into UFC 201, and if you go back almost 30 UFCs ago, which is UFC 171, he fought a really, really bad dude by the name of Tyron Woodley, which, by the way, is from St. Louis, which is my hometown. So Tyron, the only fight that Carlos ever lost. Now, this is the peak of his career, UFC 171. He's in the best shape of his life. He's going after the championship belt, and he has to fight Tyron Woodley to get to the next level, which is then the championship. What happens is Tyron actually landed several shots to one of his knees and finally blew out his ACL. Now, that was one of the very few fights that Carlos lost. In fact, not one of his fights were ever lost to submission or to excessive hits. His only TKO was to injury, and that was the injury. So when I had him on the podcast, I never really understood what gratitude really meant in our life and how we can implement gratitude to make us stronger. Like, I never thought gratitude equals grit. But that podcast, man, that really hit home to me and our listeners, because I asked him a question that I didn't think I would get this particular answer, but it was so good. I was like, okay, it's UFC 171. You just had your knee blown out. You're being carried off. What's going through your mind? Now, here's what I expected. I expected him to say, man, it was the lowest point in my career. I didn't think if I was going to make it back. I thought my career was done. I just didn't know what I was going to do. He said something that blew me away. It wasn't planned. None of these questions he even knew about. He's like, I immediately got into gratitude. And my co-host and I, Sean, we stopped for a second. We're like, what do you mean? And he goes, I immediately went into gratitude. As soon as I sat down on the stretcher or the bed or whatever it was back in the dressing room, I got on my phone and I pulled up the notes and I started typing in the top 3 to 5 things that I was most grateful for while his knee is being, addressed by the medics. So he read us what he wrote, which was, I'm thankful that I get to do what I love for a living. I'm thankful that I got injured just now doing what I love for a living. And I'm thankful that I just got injured and I got paid. And we laughed about that. We thought it was great. And he's like, here's the thing. That injury, he's like, when you're a fighter, injuries are going to happen. It's just part of what we do. It's just a matter of when they happen. He's like, so, hey, you know what? No better time to sustain an injury like that than doing what I love to do, being in front of millions of my fans. And by the way, when you're a fighter, I know it looks all glamorous and all that good stuff, but man, that's how my family eats. Had I gotten injured 2 days earlier in training and not gotten paid for that fight, I would have been out 18 months, which that's how long it took him to recover, without a paycheck. And that is hard to swallow. And that was just so incredibly empowering. It's like, okay, wait, when I get pissed off because my air conditioner just went out, or my kid disobeyed me again, or maybe I just lost a big customer at work, it's to take that productive pause. And yeah, Chris, you're right. Perspective is everything. And that's exactly what this point hits home.
No doubt.
Which is, how do you get back in that state of gratitude? What are you thankful for? That's also feeding the courage wolf and starving the fear wolf, because that fear wolf wants you to focus on that scarcity and not the abundance.
Larry, I want to mention something also that one of my friends, Elizabeth Dialto, brilliant. She shared this recently. She said, she posted, things don't happen to you, they happen for you.
Yeah.
And I think she was quoting, I believe that's Byron Katie's original quote, but I don't know for sure. But I love it. And I love the idea of taking everything and using it to your advantage, finding a way to turn that into a resource or a tool, man, including, how he flipped the switch on what could have been such a negative thing and used gratitude to create more grit in his life. Man, I love it. That's awesome.
Yeah, it goes back to that mentality. And Dave, I love how he sounded off here, which is this is worth it. I am worth it. My family's worth it. That's a hell of a power statement right
That's
there.
awesome.
Nice job,
Dave,
Dave.
I'm taking that, buddy. I'm
Yeah,
using
we're stealing it.
it.
I'm
Thanks
going
for
to tweet
sharing.
that.
That's right, man. Your ripple is started.
That's right.
Awesome.
All right. Last one, guys. Brett's taking notes, by the way. Last one, which this one came from Eric Davis, which he just wrote a book called Raising Men, Navy SEAL sniper, who actually trained Chris Kyle and Marcus Luttrell. And you talk about an honor having somebody on your show. I mean, wow. And I'm happy to say that Eric and I are going to be collaborating on a couple of online courses and projects and that kind of thing. Man, he's just such a cool guy. He's a real deal. He said something, though, that resonated with our community a lot, resonated with us a lot, too. It was one of the most talked about comments we've ever had on a podcast, which is when you take the SEAL mentality, because this is what we asked him, what does your SEAL mentality have to do with you being a father? One of the things that he talked about was leading from the front. Leading from the front. And we always hear the term lead by example, but I almost think lead by example is cliche. And it just sort of like rolls off our tongue and kind of goes over our head. And we don't really think about it. But when we think about leading from the front, that's a little bit different. It almost feels different when you hear it, right? So leading from the front, meaning if I want my kids to have a certain life, if I want to raise confident young men or confident young women, I can't just teach confidence. I need to be confidence, right? I need to show them that shining example of what it means to be a confident person in order for them to learn it. I can't just teach strategies and tips and guide them with my words. I need to guide them with my action. So I want to wrap up with that last one because it's so important. And I feel like I'm still learning this every single day. And I know most dads is perfect example. My 10-year-old, my oldest, is at that age where he loves the iPad, right? And we're trying to like limit his screen time, right? And because we want him to go out and play and do sports and all this stuff. And, he'll still remind me, he keeps me accountable just as I try to keep him accountable. And he tells me, well, Dad, if you're trying to limit my screen time, maybe we should limit yours because you're on your phone a lot at night. And I'm like, holy crap, dude, you're 10 years old and you are absolutely right. And if I want you to have limited screen time, guess what? It starts with me. So one of the things we've done is I actually will hand him my phone at 5 p.m. and I'm like, here's extreme ownership, here's accountability, and I'm gonna teach you how to do this firsthand because you're gonna help me do this. And that is what he does for me. And in the process of that, here's the cool thing. In the process of him helping me, he's learning that lesson. And he's learning that lesson by example, and he's making me better because I need to get my hands wrapped around that crap too.
Wow.
So that was the last point. But man, it was just, I could go on and on for probably 2 hours, but those were the big highlights with our biggest guests.
There's no doubt, man. It's so difficult to keep this so short. We wanted to honor everybody's Friday schedule, knowing that it's summertime. You got a lot going on. You guys are all working hard out there doing what you do. But Larry, thank you, man. It was great. Great reminders. You got me thinking about the question that I'm going to hang up today, the affirmation that I need to reassociate with for clarity to keep my mind focused on courage and not fear. You gave me this great value bomb at the end of being able to hand my phone to my son. And that I know that's an issue in our house where I'm asking him not to be on the phone and yet I'm doing it. So dude, that for me, as your co-host here, was a big value bomb. But what it reminded me of, Larry, and this is perfect to talk about Jim Shields, who wrote the Family Board Meeting. And I read this book, and in it, he talks about the family board meeting being this strategy of getting together with your kids uninterrupted time, and how he actually, it's sort of an inside joke with his family that he'll say, the phone's going off, guys. And he shows them that he's turning it off and he puts it away. And I think the symbolism in being able to declare it, not even just saying, hey, I'm not going to look at my phone for my family, but telling them, hey guys, I want this to be screen-free time. I'm putting my phone away, not going to touch it, is a declaration of importance to your family. I love the game that I don't know if you ever played this at dinners with friends, but sometimes we'll stack our phones and say the first person to touch their phone pays the bill. But that's a good way of creating some leverage. Um, Larry, I want to share with everybody also before we pop off here. We got just a couple of minutes, quick 3 minutes for everybody. By the way, we got a bunch of great guys on the line, and I want to say that I honor everybody for taking a moment out of your day to work on your life as a dad, because it's really easy to go work on our businesses oftentimes, much easier than it is to really face this topic of being an excellent dad. We always sometimes I think a lot of us feel like when we show up at work and we provide for our families that is the best thing we can do, and there's no doubt that it's important. But these types of moments, getting together with guys like Larry and learning, there's an old saying, little hinges swing big doors. And when you get that little something, that little question or phrase, that can make a huge difference for you. Larry and I are going to be together in October in Philadelphia, and we're going to be hosting, we've got a dad's retreat, the Front Row Dad's Retreat. And this is all about bringing amazing guys together for a live experience. And here's what I value personally is great guys in the same place with uninterrupted time focused on an important subject like fatherhood. So Larry's going to be speaking there and presenting an expanded version, if you will, of what we got today, new stuff, new content, and creating some great experiential learning with our dads group. We're about 70% full. We wanted to share it with you all because if you're looking for a place to connect with incredible guys, and the roster of people that are coming to this is pretty fantastic. I mentioned that Jim Shields, who wrote the Family Board Meeting, will be there presenting something that he has that is just, I listened to this and my brain was melting. It was such a great reminder. He's going to be doing a workshop there. My buddy Hal Elrod, who wrote the Miracle Morning, who's got the Miracle Morning for Parents, who just came out with Mike McCarthy, who's the CEO of GoBundance. They're going to be there. It's going to be an incredible event. In fact, I just saw our venue, which I haven't revealed yet. I saw it yesterday, and it's awesome. I'll leave that as a surprise, but it's going to be really cool. And the whole point I want to say here is that this is not an indication that the Dad's Retreat is not for broken dads, and it is not for perfect dads. It's for dads who are committed to being excellent in this area and value the opportunity to grow. They understand the importance of getting together. I like to learn in live events, live experiences, immersion events. And I also want to share, Larry, you talked a little bit about why you're so passionate about what you do. And I want to let everybody know that's on the call today why I decided to host this event. And that is because a couple years ago, I looked at my computer and I saw a folder, a file on my computer for everything in my life that was important, like my business, the charity. I had one for taxes and finances. I even had one for our family vacation, but I didn't see one for my boys. And I recognized there was a problem there. And that is that I was working on my business. I was creating time to plan our vacations, but where was my time to sit down and think about what were my family values? How was I going to raise what was my approach and strategy to raising boys? I didn't have the same approach to my own kids, my family, that I had towards almost everything else. I looked at my calendar and I saw I had live events for speaking and coaching. I had live events for charity to raise money, but I didn't have 2 days out of 365 days. I couldn't carve 2 to go focus on being an amazing father. I said something's broken. So we decided to host the event that we would want to attend ourselves. And that's exactly what's happening. So this is a smaller, it's a group of guys, invite only. And if you're listening to this and it's something you're interested in, I think there's a link that you can click to go to the page to get a little more info about what we're covering at the event. And if you've got questions, you could reach out to me directly, catch me on social, or just send me an email to john@frontrowglobal.com. And if I don't know you, we'll set up a quick call. We'll get to know each other on the phone and see if it's a good fit for you. But I will tell you that it's going to be pretty darn awesome. It's about 70% full right now. And it's a 2-day event. All the details are on the site, frontrowfactor.com/dads. We'll get you there for more information. This is October 13th, 14th, and 15th. We kick off Thursday night, Friday all day with a amazing dinner, followed up by a Saturday send-off, a couple surprises along the way. I will tell you, this is going to be a first-class event with some incredible guys. So, Larry, am I missing anything, buddy, before we say goodbye? Because I'm 60 seconds to go time. We nailed this thing right on time.
We did. No, if you guys go to the offers tab, and then down there's a red button that says Dad Retreat webpage. For all your information, guys, go there. But yeah, I agree with John. I mean, I try to do at least 3 events a year where it's an immersion event, and I like to just call it a productive pause, because it's way more effective than trying to split up a book over a month. Read a book or read a blog or a podcast. It's like literally you are in the situation, you're in the environment, and most importantly, you're around other like-minded dads, other like-minded imperfect dads who just have a desire to be better and push each other to be better. And John has just done a phenomenal job with planning this thing, and I'm honored to be one of the speakers. And we would love to see you guys there. You guys should definitely do this.
It's going to be awesome. And a quick call to action for everybody before we sign off and say goodbye here is to take, to connect with somebody in your world, another father, and have some type of valuable conversation around this topic. Even if you simply are just asking questions about something that was sparked today, or maybe say, hey, I was on this webinar and I wanted to share something, and I also wanted to get your opinion on a couple of things. But create a conversation in the next 7 days with somebody around the topic of fatherhood. Keep that conversation alive, and keep bringing it up so that you can create some collaboration. That's it, guys. Thank you so much. It is 2:01. We're out of here. Adios, everybody.